My name is Cairo Asher, though those words feel strange rolling through my thoughts, like someone else's name pinned to my chest. A voice cuts through the fog in my skull, sharp and mechanical, announcing something about system initialization and dimensional transfer complete. The words make no sense. Nothing makes sense. Pain shoots up my spine as I try to move. My head throbs like someone's been using it for drum practice. The ground beneath me is hard, uneven, and reeks of mold and decay. I force my eyes open and immediately regret it. Sunlight stabs through gaps in rotting wood planks above me, each beam a knife to my brain. Then the memories hit. Not my memories. Or are they? Images cascade through my mind in a crushing wave. A grand estate with marble columns. Servants bowing low. A father with cold eyes and a voice like winter frost. Training yards where young boys in fine clothes practice swordplay. Books filled with strange symbols that somehow I can read now. A name repeated over and over. Cairo Asher, youngest son, family disappointment, sent away to manage worthless lands. But underneath these memories, others struggle for space. Different memories. A different life. Concrete buildings reaching toward the sky. The glow of screens. A world of metal and glass and technology that doesn't exist here, that can't exist here. I'm two people crammed into one head, and the pressure might split me apart. My hands, when I finally focus on them, are smaller than they should be. Softer. The hands of someone who's barely seen 17 summers. These are my hands, except they are now, because when I try to remember my real hands, the memory slips away like water through fingers. The voice speaks again, cold and emotionless, listing statistics and confirming integration. I want to scream at it to shut up, but my throat is too dry. Instead, I lie there on the filthy floor of whatever hovel this is, waiting for the world to stop spinning, waiting for my fractured thoughts to settle into something coherent. Gradually, painfully, the pieces lock together. I'm Cairo Asher. I'm also someone else, someone from far away, but that person is fading like morning mist. This body, this life, this world is my reality now. The understanding doesn't bring comfort. It brings a deep, hollow ache in my chest. I force myself to sit up, every muscle protesting. The shack around me is worse than I initially thought. Walls lean at concerning angles. The roof has more holes than solid planks. In the corner, a broken chair lies on its side like a dead animal. This is where a noble lives? This is my home now? The absurdity almost makes me laugh, but comes out as a cough that tastes like dust. When the mechanical voice speaks again, it's different this time. Not just announcing, but offering. I have access to something called a system. Magic exists here, real magic, and I can use it. My first task materializes in my mind like words written on the inside of my skull. Restore the golden fields, cure the blight affecting the crops. The golden fields. Cairo's memories provide context. The one valuable resource in this forgotten corner of the empire, now failing. If the fields die completely, so does any hope for this territory. So does any hope for me. I need to unlock my combat energy first. The system explains this in terms that feel both alien and oddly familiar. Energy flows through everything in this world. I just need to tap into it, channel it, make it mine. Simple, except it's not simple at all. My body knows the theory from years of failed attempts. The original Cairo tried and tried, always falling short while his brothers excelled. But I'm not entirely the original Cairo anymore. I close my eyes and reach inward, searching for that spark the system describes. At first, nothing. Then a flicker, like a candle flame in a distant room. I grasp for it, and pain lances through my chest. Too hard. I try again, gentler this time, coaxing rather than demanding. The flicker grows warmer. By the time I open my eyes, sweat drips down my face, but something has changed. I can feel it now, a current running just beneath my skin, waiting to be directed. It's not much, barely a trickle compared to what I'll need. But it's a start. The sound of footsteps outside snaps me from my concentration. Heavy boots on dirt, multiple people approaching. I barely have time to stand before the door crashes open, banging against the wall hard enough to shake loose a shower of dust and debris. The man who enters fills the doorway with his bulk. His clothes mark him as someone important in the village, nicer than what farmers wear, but nothing like true noble attire. His face is red, whether from exertion or anger, I can't tell. Probably both. Lord Asher, he says, and the title sounds like an accusation. We need to talk about the fields. Cairo's memories supply the name. Randall, the village head. A man who sees this assignment as punishment, stuck managing a failing territory under a worthless young noble. His resentment radiates off him in waves. I straighten my spine, trying to summon whatever authority I'm supposed to have. Randall, what's wrong with the fields? He snorts. What isn't wrong? The crops are dying, production's dropped by half, and the villagers claim they don't know why. Lazy, the lot of them. Probably sabotaging their own work to avoid proper labor. Something in my chest tightens at his words. These people, the villagers he's so quick to blame, they're my responsibility now. The thought surprises me with its intensity. I barely know them, barely know this world, but the weight of duty settles on my shoulders like a physical thing. You think they're destroying their own livelihood on purpose? I ask, unable to keep the skepticism from my voice. Randall's jaw clenches. I think peasants will do anything to avoid honest work, my lord. They make excuses, claim the soil itself is sick, that something unnatural plagues the fields. Superstitious nonsense. But the system's mission said cure the blight. That implies something real, something beyond laziness or excuses. I need to see for myself, not rely on Randall's prejudices. Then we'll investigate together, I say, moving toward the door. My legs wobble slightly, still weak for whatever trauma brought me here, but I keep my face neutral. Take me to the fields now. I want to see exactly what we're dealing with. Randall's eyes widen slightly. Whatever he expected from the notorious failure of the Asher family, decisive action apparently wasn't it. Good. Let it be off balance. I'm certainly off balance enough for both of us. Now, my lord, you're barely. Now, I repeat, stepping past him into the sunlight. The village sprawls before me, small and shabby, but alive with motion. People move between buildings, carrying tools and baskets. Smoke rises from chimneys. Chickens scatter across a dirt road. It's nothing like the grand estate in Cairo's memories, nothing like the gleaming cities from my other life, but it's mine to protect now. Randall hurries to catch up, snapping orders at two guards who materialize from somewhere nearby. They fall in a step behind us, their hands resting on sword hilts. Whether they're here to protect me or enforce Randall's authority, I'm not sure. We walk through the village proper, and I feel eyes on us from every direction. Doors close softly as we pass. Conversations stop mid-sentence. A child starts to wave before her mother pulls her hand down. The fear is palpable, thick enough to choke on. These people are terrified, not just of the failing crops, but of authority itself, of nobles who have power over their lives and rarely use it kindly. The realization sits heavy in my stomach. The golden fields stretch out before us at the village's edge, and they should be beautiful. Cairo's memories show me what they once were. Endless rows of grain with a golden sheen that wasn't just poetic description, but actual magic, crops that grew faster and stronger than anywhere else in the empire. The territory's one treasure. Now, patches of sickly brown mar the landscape like wounds. Stalks that should stand tall droop toward the earth. Even from a distance, I can see the wrongness spreading through sections of the field like infection through a body. A small group of villagers works at the field's edge, but they stop when they spot our approach. Their faces show the same fear I saw in the village, but something else too. Desperation. These fields are their lives, their survival. If the crops fail completely, what happens to them? One man stands slightly apart from the others, older than most, with weathered hands and dirt under his fingernails. Jonathan, Cairo's memories whisper. A farmer who's worked these fields for 40 years, who remembers when the territory prospered. I move closer, ignoring Randall's continued mutterings about lazy workers and excuses. The failing crops demand my attention. Up close, the damage is worse than I thought. The stalks aren't just drooping, they're rotting from the inside out. A faint, sour smell rises from the diseased sections. When I kneel and touch one of the affected plants, it crumbles under my fingers like ash. This isn't neglect or laziness. This is something actively destroying the fields, and if I can't figure out how to stop it, everything here will die, including me. The golden fields stretch before me, their tired stalks bent and pale under the afternoon sun. My boots sink slightly into the dry earth as I walk between the rows, Randall trailing behind me with his arms crossed. The man hasn't stopped complaining since we left the main house. These people are lazy, Lord Asher, Randall says, his voice sharp with judgment. They simply refuse to work properly. I've told them what needs to be done, but they ignore my instructions. An elderly farmer approaches us from the far end of the field. His weathered face tells stories of decades under this same sun, deep lines carved around eyes that have seen too many failed harvests. He removes his hat and clutches it against his chest. "My lord," the old man says, his voice rough but steady. "I'm John. Been farming these lands for 40 years. I study his calloused hands, the way his shoulders slump with exhaustion rather than laziness. Something doesn't add up with Randall's assessment. "Tell me about the crops, John," I say, keeping my voice level. "What's happening here?" John glances at Randall, then back to me. "We've tried, my lord. We water them, we pull the weeds. But every year, the harvest gets smaller. The soil just won't give like it used to." Randall scoffs. "You see? Excuses. They need to work harder, apply more water. More water won't fix dead soil," John says quietly, but there's steel beneath his words. The tension between them crackles like lightning about to strike. I hold up my hand before Randall can retort. My goal here is clear. I need to understand what's really killing these crops, and these two men are pulling me in opposite directions. I kneel down and dig my fingers into the earth. It crumbles away like ash, dry and lifeless. No richness, no dark fertility. Just dust. The realization hits me suddenly. They don't know. These people have been farming the same way for generations, but nobody taught them about soil nutrition, about crop rotation, about fertilizer. My education in the capital covered these basics, but here in this isolated village, that knowledge never reached them. The soil is starving, I say, standing and brushing dirt from my hands. "You're not lazy, John. You just don't know what the earth needs." Randall's face reddens. John's eyes widen with something like hope. "Can it be fixed, my lord?" John asks. I look across the golden fields, seeing them not as they are, but as they could be. Yes, but we'll need everyone's help. The next hour passes in a blur of activity. John's insights about the village prove invaluable as I explain what we need. Animal waste from the livestock pens, composted plant matter from last season's stubble, even ash from cooking fires. The villagers can make fertilizer from materials they already have. "Gather everyone," I tell John. "We'll need carts, barrels, shovels. Whatever you can find." John nods and hurries off, moving faster than I would have thought possible for a man his age. Randall stands beside me, his jaw tight. "You're giving them false hope," he mutters. "This is a waste of time." "Then it's my time to waste," I reply. The conflict between us simmers just below the surface. He doesn't believe in these people, doesn't see their potential. But I need him to manage this estate, so I can't simply dismiss his concerns. "Randall, I need you to keep records. Document what we use, how much we apply. If this works, we'll need to repeat it." He seems mollified by being given a task that suits his nature. Some people need to feel important through control. I'm learning to work with that rather than against it. The villagers arrive in clusters. Women with children clinging to their skirts. Young men with eager faces. Even the elderly come, limping on canes but determined to help. John directs them like a general commanding troops, and I'm struck by how natural leadership emerges when people are given purpose. Misunderstandings plague us at first. One group tries to dump fresh manure directly on the plants, which would burn them. Another mixes wet and dry materials incorrectly. I move from group to group, explaining, demonstrating, correcting. My voice grows hoarse from repeated instructions. "The manure needs to age," I tell them again. "Mix it with the straw, let it sit. We're feeding the soil, not the plants directly." Slowly, understanding spreads. I watch comprehension dawn on faces as people grasp concepts their ancestors never knew. This is more than farming. This is teaching a village to save itself. By the time the sun reaches its peak, we've created mounds of rich, dark fertilizer. The smell isn't pleasant, but there's something honest about it. The scent of hard work and hope mixed together. Morning arrives too early, but I'm already awake. My body aches from yesterday's work, muscles protesting as I pull on my work clothes again. The villagers gather as the first light touches the golden fields, and together we begin the real labor. We haul barrels of fertilizer between the rows. My back screams as I bend and spread the dark mixture around each plant's base. Sweat soaks through my shirt despite the cool morning air. Around me, the villagers work with renewed energy. Children run water to their parents. Old men work beside young women. John moves through the fields offering encouragement, his voice carrying hope like seeds on the wind. Randall watches from the field's edge, making notes in his ledger. His expression remains skeptical, but I catch him nodding approvingly when the work proceeds with organization and efficiency. My lord, John approaches as I finish another row. About payment for this work. Randall's head snaps up. He marches over, his face already forming an objection. Payment? This is their land. They work for their own benefit. They work in my direction. I counter, straightening despite my aching back. The conflict I've been avoiding finally surfaces. They're using their time and energy to implement my solution. That deserves compensation. It's not precedent, Randall argues. If we pay them for basic farming duties, where does it end? I can feel the villagers watching us. This moment matters more than the crops. It's about whether I'll stand with them or retreat to the comfortable distance of nobility. Fair wages for fair work, I say firmly. Record it in your ledger, Randall. Each family receives payment based on the labor they provide. The villagers don't cheer. They don't need to. The way they return to work, shoulders a little straighter, backs a little stronger, that tells me everything. I've earned something here that gold cannot buy. Randall stalks back to his ledger, but he's writing. That's what matters. We finish as the sun begins its descent. The entire field lies blanketed in the fertilizer we've made together. My hands are blistered. My clothes are ruined. I smell like a barn, and I've never felt more accomplished. Then it happens. A surge of energy courses through my body, starting in my chest and radiating outward like lightning through my veins. I gasp, stumbling backward. The world around me suddenly feels more vivid. The golden stalks of wheat seem to glow. I can sense the earth beneath my feet, the life struggling to emerge from it. Words appear in my vision, glowing with ethereal light. Task complete. Restore agricultural production. The energy intensifies, and I have to brace myself to stay standing. It feels like my body is being rewritten from the inside out. Power flows into muscles I didn't know I had. My senses sharpen until I can hear individual insects moving through the grass. The air tastes different, charged with possibility. This is magic, real magic. The stories were true. But with this rush of power comes a weight I hadn't anticipated. Responsibility settles onto my shoulders heavier than any physical burden. These abilities, this strength, they come with expectations. The system that granted them will demand more. And the people who just watch me stumble with glowing eyes, they'll expect me to be something I'm not sure I can be. I steady my breathing, forcing the energy to settle into my core rather than exploding outward. The glowing words fade from my vision, but the power remains, thrumming beneath my skin like a second heartbeat. The golden fields stretch before me, and for the first time, they don't look dying. They look like a beginning. I am Cairo Asher, and I just taken my first step into a world far larger than I imagined. The evening air tasted like victory as I rode back toward Sky Old Palace. Dust clung to my boots, and my muscles ached from the day's work in the fields, but none of that mattered. We'd done it. My first real effort to change things, to make life better for the people working this land, had actually worked. Jonathan rode up beside me, his horse kicking up small clouds of dirt that caught the amber light of the setting sun. My chief knight had this look on his face, somewhere between awe and barely contained excitement. His eyes were wider than I'd ever seen them. "My lord," he said, and the title still felt strange on my shoulders. "The farmers are calling you the young eagle. Did you hear them?" I had heard them. The name had spread through the workers like wildfire as we'd finished redistributing the grain stores, setting up fair trade agreements. Part of me wanted to tell Jonathan that I was just doing what should have been done all along, but another part, a deeper part, felt pride swelling in my chest. "It's just the beginning," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my heart hammered with hope. "There's so much more to do." Jonathan grinned, a beginning that most lords wouldn't have the courage to attempt. The palace walls rose before us, dark stone catching the last rays of daylight. I thought about all the people depending on me now, not just the farmers we'd helped today, but everyone in this territory. My efforts had to count for something bigger than myself. I had to create opportunities, open doors that had been sealed shut by years of neglect and greed. But even as satisfaction warmed my bones, reality crept in like cold water. I was young, untested in the ways of real leadership. The path stretching ahead of me wasn't smooth or clear. It was rocky, dangerous, filled with obstacles I couldn't yet see but knew were waiting. As we passed through the palace gates, servants bowed their heads. Some smiled, others whispered. I caught fragments of conversation, heard my name mixed with words of hope and doubt in equal measure. I needed to think, to plan. Tonight, while the celebration of our small victory still echoed in my mind, I would map out the next steps. How could I build on this momentum? What other injustices could I address? Which allies could I cultivate? Jonathan dismounted first, then waited as I swung down from my horse. The courtyard felt different now, like I was seeing it with new eyes. Every stone, every shadow held possibility. "Get some rest," I told Jonathan. "Tomorrow brings new work." He saluted, that grin still playing at his lips, and headed toward the knight's quarters. I turned toward my chambers, already sketching strategies in my mind, when a servant boy rushed up, breathless and pale. "My lord," he gasped, "there's news. Bad news." My stomach tightened. The next morning, I stood in one of the palace's smaller meeting rooms, Jonathan beside me, listening to reports that turned my blood cold. "Baron Nero has been spreading rumors throughout the southern districts," Jonathan said, reading from a parchment that had arrived at dawn. His jaw was tight with anger. "He's telling people that you're too young to lead, that your reforms will bankrupt the territory." I paced across the stone floor, my boots clicking with each step. Baron Nero. The name had been a shadow lurking at the edges of my thoughts since I'd taken my position as lord. He was old money, old power, and he didn't like change. "What else?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Jonathan's eyes met mine. "He's encouraging unrest, suggesting that people refuse the new trade agreements. Some of his men have been seen in our villages, stirring up trouble." My hands curled into fists. Everything we'd worked for, the hope I'd seen in those farmers' faces yesterday, could crumble if Nero's influence spread like poison through our territory. "He wants to undermine me," I said quietly. "He wants to break you," Jonathan corrected, "before you can establish yourself." I stopped pacing and looked out the narrow window. The sky was gray, heavy with clouds that threatened rain. My claim as lord was legitimate, but it was new, fragile. Nero had decades of experience, connections that ran deep through the noble families. He knew exactly where to press to make me stumble. Fear tried to take root in my chest, but I pushed it down. I couldn't afford fear. Not now. "What do we know about his current movements?" I asked. Jonathan consulted another message. "He's been staying near the border area, the disputed territory where his lands meet ours." The disputed territory. Of course. That strip of land had been a source of arguments for years, never properly resolved. Nero would use it as a staging ground, a place where authority was murky enough for him to operate freely. I felt the weight of every eye that would be watching me now. How I responded to this threat would define me. Show weakness, and I'd lose everything. But charging in without thought would be just as disastrous. "We need more information," I said. "Find out exactly what he's doing, who he's talking to." Jonathan nodded, but before he could leave, another messenger burst through the door. This one was older, a farmer by the look of his weathered hands and sun-darkened skin. "My lord," he cried, dropping to one knee. "Please, you must help. It's my son." I moved toward him quickly. "Stand up. Tell me what happened." The man rose, tears cutting tracks through the dirt on his face. "My boy Thomas, he crossed into the border area yesterday, chasing our goat that had wandered off. Bear Nero's guards caught him. They're saying he was trespassing, that he was spying." My blood turned to ice. "What did they do?" "They beat him, my lord. Beat him badly and threw him in one of Nero's holding cells. They say he'll face punishment for crossing into Baron's land without permission." The farmer's voice broke. "He's just a boy, my lord. 15 years old. He was just trying to get our goat back." Rage flooded through me, hot and fierce. A boy, beaten for chasing a goat. And Nero knew exactly what he was doing. This wasn't about the boy at all. It was a message, a challenge thrown directly at my feet.